Hello, good afternoon, Art of Healthy Authentic Marriages. Welcome to our live stream again. Thanks for joining us. If you are on with us live, go ahead and drop a comment. Let us know you're with us. Let us know where you're from. I am back again with Ned and Kelly Vandiver. These are the relationship coaches and life healers who work with me inside the Couples Cure if you haven't been on with us before. And our mission really is to support healthy, authentic marriages. And we are doing, we've been doing a weekly topic. We skipped a week last week. But I'm excited to be here today because we're actually going to build on the one that we did last time. We're going to be talking about a very sneaky obstacle to working on our marriage and making changes. If you're working on things and you are facing some challenges, this is something to be aware of. And that really is what I call the invisible barrier to relationship transformation. And I talk about this in my masterclass. If you've seen that, you're familiar. But if you have not seen that, we're going to do a deep dive on that today and just look at what that really is and how that gets in the way. Now, our last live stream is very much connected to this. What we talked about is emotional triggers and how we can be doing really well for a while, but as soon as we get triggered, what we have learned goes right out the window and sabotages essentially all the work that you're doing. And those triggers are deeply intertwined with our automatic default mode that's made up of a cluster of core beliefs. So these beliefs, these core beliefs about yourself and about love and what's possible in relationships, it could be beliefs about worthiness. These are things that will get in the way, and you may be aware of them or you may not be aware of them. But whether or not you are doesn't really matter. They really will win the show unless we can reprogram them, because the subconscious mind is so powerful. So a lot of times when we get triggered, there's usually some beliefs that we're operating from without even realizing it.
Yeah.
It happens really fast. So what we're going to tackle today really is what these limiting beliefs are, because they're going to take you down if you can't change them at that deepest level. And that takes a lot of time and technique and consistency. We want to leave you with a little bit of something that you can do about it. But first, we're going to talk about what is the subconscious mind exactly. You know, our mind in general. You know, when I say you got to get yourself out of the way, it doesn't mean you want to take all of your mind out of the picture, but there's a certain part of our mind that I'm really talking about. So we're going to talk about what that is, how it's designed to keep things the same, how it's actually designed to keep you stuck, and then most importantly, what you can do to really consciously reprogram those beliefs so that you're less likely to be triggered and to get derailed and sabotage the progress that you've been working on. So real quick before we dive in, I just want to distinguish, like I mentioned, there's this difference between our subconscious mind and our conscious mind. It's two types of intelligence that we have that both can benefit us if we know how to use it properly. And we're going to go into that more. But essentially, the subconscious mind is is really our hardwiring that we learn when we're like between 0 and 7 years of age. Our subconscious mind, and I talk about this in my masterclass, literally can process 40 million bits of information per second. So it's processing things, body language. We pick up on things and we can respond so quickly without even realizing. It's a really powerful processor. Whereas our conscious mind only processes 40 bits of information per second, which I still think sounds like a lot. Like that's a lot in 1 second, but it's, you know, a million times less or 10 million times less or whatever. I'm not good at the math here, but get the idea, right? So, but the conscious mind, though it's weaker, is more creative and more intelligent. So our conscious mind can tell us, you know what, even though I grew up this way, even though this is what I've always had, this is what I've always known, I can imagine something better. And you can have a vision and something to work toward. And that's the real intelligence. That's what makes us human. So we want that to be guiding us. So the subconscious mind, if you want to know, like, well, why do we even have that if it's not, why is it more powerful if it is working against us? It's really just an adaptation. It's a survival skill, and it's designed for humans to adapt to their environment and learn, basically, this is my environment, this is what I've learned, so now I have to adapt, and that's my program, and that's supposed to support me for the rest of my life. As a biological organism, it helps us adapt. But as a human being, where we have the capacity to evolve and transcend and create something new with faith and vision, that's where it really works against us. And that's the part of our humanity that is not served by this subconscious mind. But if we know how it works, we can be more aware and get proactive about what to do.
Exactly.
So for you guys, like, I wanted to turn it to you and see, I know we've talked about this before, you guys see this coming up a lot in work with clients where this will really creep up and get in the way. And it's pretty sneaky, but how much does this come up for you guys? How does it show up, and why is this such a barrier?
Well, it comes up for us all the time, every day, in ourselves first and foremost, and as well as with our clients. And the problem is, like you said, Monika, is there's a lack of knowledge around the science of the mind, the laws of the mind, right? Laws of nature. There's laws of nature, there's laws of the universe, there's laws of the mind. And people aren't aware of how it works. So I brought my little visual so that you guys can see. This
I love it.
Brain, and it's color coded so you can see.
So the words are,
so the red
words are corresponding with the part of the brain that it represents.
Exactly. So the red part is the reptilian part of the brain. You know, the survival part of your brain. The reptilian part of your brain is the part of your brain that the subconscious that started your heartbeat in your mother's womb. Okay, it's the part of the brain that keeps your organs pumping and working even when you sleep. It keeps you breathing. That's the part of your brain that is running your body 24/7. This also happens to be the part of the brain where our habits live, our beliefs live. Our beliefs are our habits. Okay. And that's why it's so dang hard to change, because guess what? They live in this automatic part of your brain that is going to be
need their awareness.
Yeah. It's going to be externally, you know, whatever is in your environment, whatever's going on in your life right now is a reflection, an exact reflection of what you're thinking about 24/7. Okay. Because when you use now this part of our brain, the neocortex, right? The conscious part, the green, the thinking part, the neocortex, the conscious part of our brain, the adult brain, part of the brain that's, you know, most, it's the latest and greatest brain, okay? And the humans are the only ones that have them.
That's where the frontal lobe of the brain, right? That's the cerebral cortex or something like that? Yeah.
The neocortex, cerebral cortex. And that part of the brain is to be the CEO of your whole mind, because consciously you can say, this is what I want. Instead, you have a vision. You can shift your thoughts when you find yourself a negative thought. You use your conscious mind to do that. But if anything that you're constantly focused on and saying to yourself and thinking about in your head, that is getting burned into that red part right there, that reptilian part of your brain that is going 24/7. That's why it's so powerful, because it's working all the time. So the beliefs live in that part of the brain. And what happens is you go to, you know, learn something new, you go to implement new stuff. And what happens is the old patterns, the old programs that are deeply embedded take over, especially when you get triggered, right? So you'll go back to these places over and over and over again. And it's why people find themselves in these cycles of this same thing.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again.
Yeah. Can you hold this again one more time, Kelly? Can I just see that picture one more time? Because what I love about that visual is that you can see, so in the green part, that's where you're learning the skills and tools for communication. That's when you're having that self-awareness and you're like, oh, this is what I'm going to say next time instead of reacting in this old way, right? That's where that's stored. But as soon as you go into fight or flight, the red part of the brain is what's activating, and you can actually see how it goes down to the brain stem, and that's that more primitive part of us. It goes into that automatic fight or flight response. So you can literally see that that part of the brain doesn't even have access to the information that's stored in the green part of the brain. I love that because I always say that we can't access that information that's right here that we've learned with the intellectual part of our brain. But the visual is so powerful, you can literally see how they're so far away from each other. And that red part, like you say, Kelly, stores so much information, but it's based on the past. It's based on mostly those first 7 years of your life. And it does not have any sense of time. So if something happens in the present moment that reminds that part of your brain of a past experience growing up when you were feeling betrayed or when you were being abused or when you were being mistreated, in the present moment, that part of the brain doesn't know any different. It doesn't know, like, I'm an adult now, I don't have to, I'm actually okay right now. It responds as though you're still that child that isn't safe and that doesn't have a choice, or, you know, it doesn't know what's present, or it has no sense of time, whereas our conscious mind does have a sense of time. So when you, I think that's important to remember too, because when you get triggered and you're operating from those old beliefs from childhood, or you're acting childish, you know, when people say, oh, I was just acting childish, that's that red part of the brain that's running the show, because it's not even aware of where you are in the chronology of your life.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Oh,
I just want to say one thing.
Oh yeah, sorry.
I just want to say one thing too, though, before we get to the middle part. I want people to understand that there's nothing wrong with them also. This is a natural part of who we are. You know, there was a time that, there was a time that the way that the brain works actually served us. At, you know, to our highest potential, because we're no longer cave people. We're not running away from, you know, outside stimulus, dinosaurs, and things of that nature. We're in the thinking age. So now the roles have kind of reversed in terms of the importance, because we really want to utilize the front part of our brain so that we can retrain and reprogram that hard drive.
Right.
Essentially, that's what it comes down to. It's just, that's why it's so hard. But I want people to understand that it's very natural for your body. It's a default mode that your body naturally goes into and your brain goes into whenever you do anything. Okay, unless you start the process of becoming aware, like Monika and Kelly have said, and start to utilize the part of the brain that can actually change the program. Okay, it's really important just to understand that part. But I don't want people to freak out and think, you know, there's something wrong with them, because this is very normal stuff.
Yes, that's a good point. Really good point.
Yeah.
It's so human, and it's really just a matter of knowing what each part of the brain is responsible for, so that you can recognize, oh, that's the part that's driving me right now, based on
exactly right.
About that. When we talk about solutions and what you can do differently. Yeah. But so what's the middle part of the brain?
Okay, so the other part, and of course we can't teach everything in one class, but this is gonna give you guys.
Can you zoom in a little closer so we can see the words too?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
So that yellow part is the emotional brain. That's the part of your subconscious mind. That's the limbic system. That is the part. That's your feelings. Okay, your emotions. Okay, and it's very powerful. And all of these pieces work together.
They're not completely separate.
No, they are meant to work together in a very harmonious way and in a powerful way for you to have an amazing life, an amazing marriage. But you have to learn how to use it. You have to learn what the working pieces are and how they work, and how to, like Ned said, reprogram the subconscious, so that as it's working 24/7, it's working to change your reality into the reality that you want to see.
Yes.
Instead of the one that it's creating on autopilot that you don't want to see, based on the thoughts that you think that create the feelings that you have, and then manifest what in your life. So
yes, exactly. So, and I want to share with everybody too, just like what they can do to essentially what you're saying, Kelly, lead with the conscious mind, and to be able to reprogram or harness or leverage the strength of the subconscious mind. Because if you can get it on board with what your conscious goals are, you're not fighting within yourself. Everything's so much easier.
Yeah,
you actually have like momentum working for you, and it's magic once you get there. But before you get there, let's help. Like, I want to kind of share with people first to understand if people are listening and they're wondering, well, how do I know that my subconscious brain is running the show? How do I know that my mind, my limiting beliefs are getting in the way? What are some signs that are a pretty surefire way of knowing, okay, that's what's going on here. I need to pay attention.
Well, the main one is negative thinking. If you find yourself thinking, and a lot of people don't even pay attention to, their thoughts. I know that for many years of my life, I wasn't paying attention. I was just autopilot. I was not being conscious. And so negative thinking is a huge one.
Yes. So many people, that's such a good point, that a lot of people don't even know they're doing it. A belief is just a thought you keep having. And sometimes it's so ingrained that it's like not something that you're not noticing it until you're talking about it, and then you recognize it. Or through talk therapy, that's where people get insight and recognize, oh, this is what I've been telling myself.
Yes.
I first noticed my negative thinking when I started yoga. I went to this Bikram yoga class. So that anybody knows, this is like a really ass-kicking kind of yoga. It was really brutal. It was like really hot. It was a 90-minute class. And I was already dehydrated when I started the class. And I just remember there was literally no way I could do it if I let my negative thinking take over. And I became so acutely aware
of your thoughts.
That my thoughts were like, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to do this. Oh my God, this sucks so bad. I can't wait to get out of here. This is ridiculous. Look at everybody else looks so amazing. You can't even.
I mean, it's crazy.
And I was like, wow, that's a lot of literally somebody's just, I would never talk to my friend like that.
Yeah.
They were starting a yoga class. I would be like, you can do this. Oh my God, you look great for your first time being here. And who cares what other people think, And so then I started to realize if I could talk to myself in a more positive way, and then I was able to do it. And that was the first time I realized, that was a long time ago. Whatever it takes, people become more aware of it through different ways. And we'll talk about ways that you can become more aware of that. But I totally agree. Negative thinking. And also, I would say along with that is cycles that you can go through, cycles of dysfunction. We talked about this with triggers last week, but if you're in a cycle where you're doing great for a while, and then boom, you're back in the trenches again, you're back in the old way, and you're like, I thought we were past this.
Yeah.
That's because that is pretty much a guarantee that your old programs are running the show, that your old brain has taken you out again.
Yeah, I really want to stack on what you said, Monika, because you made a really good point when you gave the example of your thinking during the yoga process. But the other thing that I noticed that you said was the culmination of negative thoughts you begin to create those, more and more of them, not just one, but you begin to create one after the other and begin to stack on them. And this again is what you're talking about now, just to bring it forward, where you're talking about the outcomes that persistently are the same that people don't want as a result of the negative thinking, because that's you begin to create this tailspin just based on one thought.
Yeah.
That's where you begin to take the thoughts is to the negative area. You start streamlining everything that you can think of that's negative about that situation. You just begin to stack on it, and it gets worse and worse and worse. And then you create a cycle, just like you said. So the outcomes are the same. And then people are left standing there going, why do we keep arguing about the same thing over and over again?
Mm-hmm.
And you're creating it.
Yeah.
You know? Unless you said,
thought.
like you said, you change, you hit the brakes, and you're able to change the process of that thought and go the other way with it. You know, but it's really hard, like we're talking about.
It takes a lot of force and momentum because it can be a tidal wave, and it's like, how do I first? You first is just slowing it down. It's not stopping to a dead halt. You can't just always just stop it in dead tracks. If you can do it less and less and less, it slows it down, and then you can build momentum going the other direction.
Yeah.
So it is really powerful to recognize it's through repetition. If you notice you're having a negative thought, that's awesome. Celebrate that you're aware of that. Don't beat yourself up. You have an opportunity to stop and now replace it. It's and stopping thinking something is a challenge too, because it's like, you know how when you tell people don't think of a pink elephant, like the first time you think of it, an elephant, you have to have something to replace it with. Think of this instead.
Right.
You know, creating more positive thoughts, not just stopping the negative thinking.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Another thing I think that is a really good indication, like how this shows up if the beliefs are taking over, is if you feel a really strong pull to do or say something that you know is not going to be helpful.
Yeah.
You feel really pulled to the habit of like, oh, I really want to say it right now, and you know it's not the right thing to do. That is the force of the habit. That is the force of your subconscious mind wants you to do it so bad.
Yeah.
That is a sign that your conscious mind is not winning. And the best thing to do is at least just not react and say, you know what, if I choose to do that an hour from now or 2 hours from now, I can. But I just want to pause and give myself time to make that decision. That sometimes will give yourself a little bit of a pause. But the strength and the force of the will of habit, I think that is a really big signifier that that's what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And when we talked about triggers last time, I was saying, if you ever have that zero, you go from 0 to 90 in 1 second.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, boom, you were fine, and somebody said something or looked at you the wrong way, and all of a sudden, you've processed it, you've made meaning out of it, and now you're responding from that reptilian brain so fast you don't even know what hit you.
Yep.
And your partner might be like, whoa, where did that come from? Or, okay, whoa, chill. You know, if that's the kind of reaction you're getting, that's thinking as well.
Yeah.
And then too, we teach about how to have a great marriage. And so if you find that your marriage is real shitty and it doesn't feel good, or your life is shitty or hard in any way, and you've had a lot of hardship, okay, and got money issues, got relationship issues, you got work issues, your subconscious is definitely running the show of your life.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. We can tell what we really believe by looking at our life, because our life is like a printout of what we deeply believe. And that's hard for people to really get on board with, because they're like, well, no, of course I don't want this.
Right.
Consciously, that's true. You don't consciously want that.
Right.
But deeper beliefs are in charge of what you actually are experiencing in your life. So that's why it's so important. That's a really good point. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the most common issues when I'm talking to clients that they're dealing with. When you talk about a specific problem and you say, getting them to understand that it's part of their creation. They just, because like you said, because a lot of times they're using the prefrontal cortex and they're going, why would I want to live like this? Why would I want to have a hard life?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't make any sense to them. They can't put the two together because they just have to continue to ask themselves, why would I want that? And it's just like you may not want it. Just like you said, Monika, consciously, you don't want that. But most of your thoughts, the predominant thinking is the opposite of that.
Exactly.
And that's what people don't understand. Yeah, go ahead.
Exactly, that's right. And so for that example that you're using, you might have the conscious desire or goal to be in a different situation that is higher and better than where you are right now.
Yeah.
But perhaps your beliefs, your old beliefs, tell you that that's all that you're capable of, or that that's all, like an example of a limiting belief would be, well, that's just how all men are. That's like a limiting belief that would keep someone stuck. Or, well, that's just all I'm capable of. Or that's, the worthiness beliefs, like maybe I'm not the kind of person that's worth having something better.
Right.
So if there's
I'm not that great, right? I'm inadequate. So I'm not ever going to really amount to anything because I'm inadequate. I shouldn't really expect a lot of myself. And another really big belief is that a lot of people have that really just destroys lives every day is that, this is happening to me and life is happening to me and I'm a victim of my circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
The only way to combat that, and this is probably getting into the solution, is 100% ownership. Because when you take ownership, man, you take back the power and you change all of it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And that's what you teach inside the program. And of course, we can't get into all of it today, but our natural state is harmony, love, peace, joy. That's our natural state. So when we look around and we see that our life is not the way we want it to look, and it's not peace, love, joy, positivity, and that homeostasis that our bodies and minds long for, we'll beat up on ourselves naturally because when you're having all these issues, money, relationship, job, negativity, that's going against everything that's natural. Okay.
Right. Exactly.
And so, if it's not peace, love, joy, harmony, abundance, that's our natural state. If that's not what your life looks like, it's why it doesn't feel good.
Exactly. And the beliefs are, and it's not just on like when we say that is what your deeper beliefs want. It's not, like you say, it's not your fault. It's what the brain has been conditioned. Those old programs are saying that that's what you deserve, even though, or that that's what you should have, because that is what it was conditioned to believe for whatever reason, whatever meaning it made in those years that you might not even remember, or maybe you do remember. But I think also what you're saying, what struck me when you were sharing that, Kelly, is just what powerful creators we are, but that we forget that.
Yes.
We are truly powerful creators. And there's this distinction, and it was a good segue into the solution, which we can talk about. It's not to say, Will Smith did this video on fault versus responsibility.
Yeah.
And sometimes things happen to us. If you guys haven't seen it, look it up on YouTube. It's a pretty short video, but there might have been things that absolutely were not your fault. Things beyond your control that have led you to where you are, and it's not your fault. But you have responsibility and more power than you realize to start changing circumstances through thinking differently. It actually really works, and it feels a little bit magical. And some people are really skeptical, like, how could that work? This material reality is completely independent from my thought process. But it's only when you can start to hold a vision and keep faith and not sabotage through negative thinking that new opportunities become come into your awareness, or that you start to access solutions or relationships or positive feelings, like, personal, energetic, and emotional resources become available. So I think that's so important to just remember. It really does start with recognizing, like you guys say, if your life isn't looking the way you want it to look, and you have the tools and you have the insight, then it's most likely subconscious beliefs that need to be addressed and turned around. The good news is it actually doesn't take as long as people think. It does not take years of talk therapy. So that's the good news.
Well, I just want to say one other thing too. The power that we have, and since we're talking about the power that we do have to create, I want people to understand that the lives that they see before them that have unfolded that they don't like, that is the creation. That is their creation. Mm-hmm. So you have that same power to create
something new.
Something I'm just saying it's the same power. It's just
Yeah.
where it's focused.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to get people to understand. It's that simple because it's a shift in thought. The part that's hard is because of the grooves. It's like grooves in an album or on a disc that you have to rewrite and reprogram. You can't just, unfortunately, we can't just toss it out and put a new one in. You have to fill in those grooves whenever you do any type of program. You have to fill in those grooves, and then you have to rewrite. And that's the hardest part for people to understand. But it starts with the same energy, just with a different intention and a different focus.
Exactly. It's
in
really
another direction. But it's the same energy. Kelly always talks about this, and she talks about it. She talks. It takes the same energy to do something that yields you a negative result. It takes the same energy to get the positive result.
It's
true. Just that we focus on, your focus becomes the juice.
Mm-hmm.
It's the juice. It's the energy. It's what's going to bring to you either what you don't want and what you do want. And your subconscious is the other thing I want people to be aware of. Your subconscious doesn't care if it's negative or if it's positive. It's just going to deliver to you what the predominant thought is. It doesn't care.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't have judgment.
Yeah, it doesn't differentiate between the two. It doesn't do that. It just gives you what you predominantly think about in the way of your intention and your feelings. That's what it delivers.
Because the law of the subconscious is compulsion.
Yeah,
that's the law of the subconscious, and compulsion means it does what it's told to do.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it takes orders from your conscious mind and by way of your thoughts.
Yes.
So, your thoughts are your prayers. And the trick is, the solution is to, when you find yourself in the negative thought, be aware of it, be an observer of it. Don't judge yourself for it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't add more meaning to it, right? Don't add more story to it. Just observe it. And then very quickly shift into the opposite thought. Shift into the positive opposite.
Yeah.
And start focusing your energy in a positive way. And then what happens is when you do that, you neutralize the power of the negative thought and you begin towards a more positive direction. You have an emotionally corrective experience, and that's what you want to do, because ultimately you want to be always in a state of positivity and positive thought, love, joy, peace, harmony, focusing on things of that nature.
Mm-hmm. Because what you focus on grows, and the more that you can focus on the positive, and the more that those things that you're noticing and appreciating, they will grow bigger. And the negative things that you don't want will essentially become starved out of existence, because we're not going to feed it anymore with our thinking.
Yeah.
So I like that idea of notice it and then immediately think of, well, what else is true that I can focus on?
Right.
That's equally as true that I'm choosing to ignore right now.
Yeah.
And you can make a habit of that for sure. Yeah. Also, I think what helps is if people journal. Some people really love journaling, some people really don't. But if you're a journaler, if that's something you think you can do, that will help you become more aware of when those negative thoughts are coming up. And you can actually write down a counter thought to every single one. And then it's in black and white that you can go back to. The next time you start going there, you can go back to your list of positive counter thoughts.
That's
and
really
wait a minute, I just need to remind myself of this.
Yeah.
And really, it's the same thing as what you're saying, Kelly. It's just a way of capturing it in writing, which can be very powerful leverage for people. Because in the moment when the subconscious mind is taking over, sometimes we need an outside-in message because it doesn't come from the inside of it, from us.
Right. Yeah. And affirm it. Affirm it over and over to yourself as many times as you need to make you feel better. You'd be surprised at how powerful it is to just sit in a dim room, close your eyes, and say things out loud and affirm them, because you can feel them that way, because your feelings, and that's a whole other class, your feelings really play a big part in what you create in your life as well. And that comes from that emotional part of the brain.
Yeah, exactly. And so this can be done through repetition and, you know, saying it over and over again and doing affirmations until it sort of filters down. It also can be done where you're actually engaging both hemispheres of the brain at the same time, where you're in a more whole brain state. Hypnotherapy does this, NLP does this. I teach a modality that does this too, where you can go, you do this sort of visual auditory kinesthetic exercise.
Yeah.
While in whole brain state, you can internalize a new belief and literally overwrite like the negative belief. Because for some people, affirmations just don't go in, especially if they have a trauma history or if there's a lot of stuff that's getting in the way. They'll tell themselves a new belief, but they just don't believe it, and then they argue with themselves and they're like, yeah, right, you know.
You have to believe it. You have to believe it.
Exactly. So if you find that there's resistance around that, you may need an approach that will engage the subconscious mind and bringing it into into those old programs. So you're not just having to rely on the conscious mind. Now, meditation can help you in terms of a daily practice of mindfulness, of becoming more aware. And then the stuff that we've talked about also, I think EMDR helps with removing the trauma that can get in the way of this work. But honestly, changing your limiting beliefs at the core the core level, at the subconscious level, is the single biggest thing that you can do to set yourself up for success in whatever your goals are, relationship-wise or anything, whether it's health-wise, whether it's financial, anything.
All of it.
So if you guys want to learn this process in more detail, if you're looking for support specifically how this pertains to your marriage or your relationship, you can book a call with us. I'll put a link in below at monikahoyt.com/talk. And essentially you just be booking in a free call to talk to myself or to Ned or to Kelly. And we can talk to you a little bit about your own, relationship and your dynamics, and try to help identify what are those limiting beliefs that are getting in the way. What would you need to believe based on what your vision is? And then see if we can set up some action steps for you to help you turn things around so that you can create your marriage from your goals and your vision and not from your fears and your old patterns.
Yeah.
Also, if you have any questions about this live stream, don't hesitate to ask. I'm not seeing any questions today that came up, but if you guys put them in below, we'll definitely go through and answer them. And be sure to like or share this live stream with anybody. Tag anybody that you think might benefit from this. If you know someone that, if you were listening to this and you're like, oh, this reminds me of so-and-so, make sure to share that with them, because a lot of people just don't know. They just don't know this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not in the mainstream. So
no, definitely.
That's all I have for today. Do you guys have anything you want to add to this?
No. How about you, Deb? You have anything?
I think we did a good job of a nutshell here.
Yeah, I think we did good. There's so much to say about this, but we can't go on and on forever. But
yeah. Well, that's it for today then, you guys. Thanks for coming. Thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you next week. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye. Thank you, Ned and Kelly, for coming and joining.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Monika. We'll see you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.